I've seen that face more than a million times, like a million times. I have seen that, baby. I can treat you right and you can prove me wrong. Turn around, be gone, turn around now, baby.
Welcome back. It is March Madness. It is the end of Pisces season going into Aries. And what isn't changing is that I am Tiffany.
And I am Andrea.
And we are relatively unstable.
Always.
Today we are going to talk about Unprisoned, the new Kerry Washington and Delroy Lindo series on Hulu. And before we get into that, do not forget to like, follow, share, save, subscribe, all that good stuff to keep us going to eventually do something in this very narcissistic technological world we live in. We want to be a part of it too. So let's talk Unprisoned with two of my favorite people that I don't know. And that is Kerry Washington and Delroy Lindo. So first episode, what did you think?
So I just turned on Hulu and saw this and I was just like, okay, I'll try it. Because the alternative was me rewatching Frasier. So I was like, okay. So I've seen Frasier a gazillion times. And so I turned it on and I was very drawn in almost immediately. There was a lot of things going on that made me okay, what is this? What is going on here? So automatically, just from the first appearances of Paige, who is Kerry Washington on the screen, I knew that there was something different about her upbringing versus a traditional Black upbringing. So I picked up on that instantaneously. So I was like, okay, so there's something else going on here. And then and then that was especially evident when I saw her son, and I was like, okay, so she this is obviously a biracial child. So I was like, okay, so now it's starting to spin for me. So then I'm like, okay, why is it called Unprisoned? And then that's when, literally seconds after I said that, that's when Delroy Lindo's character came in. And I was like, okay. And so after that, I was just in it. I was like, okay, well, I'm watching it.
And so for me, I went into it already having kind of an idea of some of the themes of it. And what drew me in was how, first of all, she got real loud with that her Instagram page and all that posting and shit. And I was like, oh, she's calling bitches out.
Right.
Okay. I see that. I feel seen.
Right.
And silly, and also just whatever it is, what it is. But for me, a lot of it was kind of immediately the tone they set is she's kind of a quirky woman. She's she's this therapist, she's a marriage, or she's a counselor, not a relationship counselor. She's a counselor. So she's got this knack for helping people, but her own life is a hot ass mess. So again, yelling through the TV screen at me. And then she's got, she's a single mom raising a son, and, who's kind of, got his own quirks. And, the single mom part, raising a son, is something that I identify with for so very long. And then having a son who's such an individual is something that I know about now, because I have, my youngest is quite the individual, and it's just one of my favorite things about him. But and then this relationship with her father and some of the things that we'll get into, I could understand.
hmm And I had forgot about the social media part. But yeah, and I think that that speaks to a lot of what we see on Instagram right now and TikTok
Hmm.
is, you know, people, and I would be like, it's one of my least favorite things about social media is just the constant, constant like self-help memes, like just literally all
Hmm.
like I mean, sometimes I need to see them even if I don't want to see them, but in the 80% of the time where I don't need to see them, they can be very annoying to me.
Yeah.
So,
The cry, the profound cries for help.
yes, yes,
the
yes.
the fake deep,
The
the
fake deep.
yeah, like, oh, I'm so profound, and I'm like, are you though? No, I think you. I mean, we're all on social media for attention, for engagement, and um, and then there is the things that make me personally uncomfortable when there's something just like so serious
Mm-hmm.
all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these what do you call it? Like Facebook philosophers.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
over it. But I felt her because isn't that kind of where that's kind of not where she was coming from. She was just kind of being herself, and
Right.
I
Right.
love
Which is the opposite take of what annoys me about social media is so
right.
much. But the underlying issue of it is that even though we're not counselors and most people aren't counselors, but the fact that she is on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it was, and she's like, you know, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was talking about like relationships and how to move through them and how to handle them and all this, and it's like a facade,
Yeah.
which is so very relevant to all social media. Like even even in moments where you are like being vulnerable on social media and you're talking about like what's really going on in your life, like
Mhm.
even that, even though it you are being vulnerable, but your followers see this as something brave, like
Yeah.
and it's like everything is content and everything is show.
Right.
So
And the
like
reality is
talk
it's all
about
one side.
mm-hmm.
Like you're not going on talking, when we're talking about these types of dynamics, you're not going on talking about your dynamic or your relationship dynamic, and then the other person is there to say, oh, but this is my perspective. Usually, there are some of those type of things, which I actually do enjoy those too.
Mm-hmm.
But 9 times out of 10, it's like when the people we're talking about, it's a one-sided thing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's them against the world, and
Mm-hmm.
they're living in their truth now and all that kind of stuff. It's like,
Right.
well, if you were just an authentic person, and the reality is we're all insecure. So
Right.
but some of us are comfortable in our insecurities more than others, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And but she lived in her quirkiness, and accepted it. And there are times throughout the series, and lots of them, I think, where she was pretty accountable for, okay, this is why I am how I am,
Mm-hmm.
as she's figuring it out, because that's also a reality, is who we know ourselves to be today may not be who we know ourselves to be tomorrow.
Listen.
You know what I'm saying? Like, as soon as, right, we might, you know what I'm saying? Like, there may be some self-discovery in talking to each other that we're like, oh, okay, no, that's actually not who I am. Like, I know
Right.
that's my experience, but that's my experience, because some people, like, very resolute. They know who they are. They, you know, this is, or they think they do, and they stand by that. And I'm not that person. I am constantly changing, not always evolving, but I'm constantly changing, you know, like, so, you know, I felt that was kind of who she was as a person in this series. And, you know, I love the dynamic with her and her son, just like the transparency. And it actually made me kind of sad that I wasn't like that more with my first son. I was much more like feeling my way and kind of probably more like, you know, hierarchical with him, as opposed to really just leaning into who he was, and you know, his letting him express himself in different ways. I feel like I let him express himself, but I probably stifled that in my belief from other people that I had to, or that's, you know, whatever. But, you know, so then enter Edwin, her dad.
Who I love. Like, I think he's very the overarching theme, or what attracts me to these characters, is that like they really feel real. Like just how, like we were just talking about Carrie, about like, or Paige, like we're seeing her evolve in real time. Like, so she's like, she understands that she has this social media presence, and she also understands that her father is coming home from prison, and she hasn't really seen him in about 17 years, and she has a son that he's never met. Like, so she's like navigating through all of this. And
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and then Edwin is also like, which I also think is really relatable, and a big issue is people come home from prison and resources are hella limited. Like, you can't just go and get a job. You can't just do things that seem normal to people who've never been to prison. Like, you can't just go do that. And we hear so much of, oh, well, why don't you just go do this? Or why don't you just do that? Or why don't you? And there is no just doing that.
Or like, why can't you just behave? Why can't you just do the right thing?
Right. And so, like, his character is super layered. And I think that it's also very real to talk about how interested he is in sex and in women, and how like that is a theme that comes through very clear on the first episode. And also you can see how that influenced Carrie's life, Paige's life. Like, it's so layered.
Yeah.
And I didn't to cut you off from
I was cutting you off, and I was cutting you off because you actually brought it back around to the point I was about to make, because in the midst of all of this, they very in a very real way slid in kind of her like parental wounds in her, you know, like, and not only that, just kind of the reality of what life is in, you know, when you're kind of like emotionally stunted and starved. And she, you know, what they depict her immediately, she's like, oh, giving this relationship advice. And I can't remember what the first social media scene was, but then as she's walking out the door, she's like, where is this man who's supposed to be my man, who I have the, you know, this is my boyfriend, you know, but, you know, really he is, what's the term that they use? Emotionally unavailable. You know, he's an emotionally unavailable person to her, but he's a figure. He is a male figure who occasionally is giving her attention, affection, or whatever, you know, hesitating to define who they are and give her the security that she really needs. But yet she's, you know, really making a career out of advising other people out of these situations and, into their feeling comfortable with themselves. But she's so blinded by her own, relationships with her parents and the grown-ups around her that, she's just hyper focused on the comfort that she finds, fleetingly with this person. I think his name is Bill.
Bill, yep.
So daddy comes home and the first thing, well, not the first thing, they do show him, picking up women in the grocery store and then he's got these his homeboys, so he's going, back to what's familiar because she's not offering for him to stay in her house because she's like, I got this son and
right.
Which also kind of resonated with me a little bit in that I was so protective of my son from his own father and the people around his father because, I'm like, he can't handle what's going on, but the reality was I couldn't handle it. It was not a life and lifestyle that I, knew and was comfortable with, and it was something I feared. And we're not talking about, prison here. We're just talking about uneducated, low priority, no goals, hustler type people. I feel like I let my fear get in the way of him making that assessment for himself and then driving him toward chasing after that lifestyle, even though the life that was made for him and my family was so different.
Yeah. I mean, but much like Paige, though, or even though it's obviously a different circumstance, like the need as a mom to protect your child is like, that's number one. That's overwhelming. So like even if it could have been handled better, but the need to protect your child had to come first for you. Like, even if whatever. So, which is what Paige is doing too. Like, she's very like, I need to control this narrative. Like, I need to control access so that, the work that I've been doing with my child and how I've been raising him, it doesn't go to shit just because my dad came home,
right. And that's us not trusting our children. That's us not trusting our children. And, I think for her, so we haven't gotten into Nadine, who is daddy's, bottom bitch. Is that the right term?
I guess so. Yeah.
Who apparently, took Paige in and she's a white woman. And, daddy was gone. So Paige grew up, that kind of, and they live in Minnesota. Where they live? Like,
I think it is Minnesota.
Minnesota. But she's raised by this, actually kind of cool chick. And that was another experience to which I could relate. Not the cool chick part, but my father, amazing father, but he liked the ladies, and after he and my mom got divorced, there were plenty of ladies, but the one that stuck like a fucking fly to fly paper was this white woman to whom even though I was not isolated, you know, like it was a weird dynamic for me to have this woman in my father's life, you know, and for me it was more like, oh, but we're Black women and we're not good enough, you know. For me it was like a reflection on like myself, like like you it was, I mean, she was just not a good person, and she was so whack, as you know, just whatever color she was just a whack person. But that part of it as a young woman, you know, made me insecure, because it's like, oh, like you're supposed to love who I am.
Right. And you're a part of me. Like you made me.
Right.
So,
I mean, that was immaturity as well, but that's how I was feeling about that situation. You know, and I suspect that that's like kind of like an unsaid thing, you know, in this, you know. But they did a good job later of touching on some of the other things too that come with that. But for me, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, trigger, you know, like I get it, you know, and it really isn't so much. I mean, it is about conditioning. It is about, you know, how segregated we are. It is about how we're raised. And before anybody who looks at me and doesn't know me and looks at my pictures and don't know, my mother is actually a Black woman.
I have to say that as well. Like,
I feel like I need to say that and remind people, because even if you see a picture of her, and even if I say that and show you that, you're still going to argue me that she is not. But
yep,
she is. And so that is a thing for me. And we'll get in, you know, so then there's the color thing too. As a light-skinned woman, I'm always like, young woman was always having to prove I am Black. And then here you come kind of discrediting, in my mind, my Blackness.
Right. Yeah.
So he puts her into this environment that's largely white and not validating her Blackness.
Right. Yeah. Whew. That's a mouthful. Yeah.
I've been living that all my life.
Right. All my life I had to fight.
All my life.
But yeah, so like that, also a little background, because I was looking at the Nadine character and I was like, who is this woman? I have seen her before.
I said that too.
She's been on other stuff, but what I know her from is a little known show that was only on for 2 seasons. That is one of my favorite shows in the whole wide world. It's called Sports Night. And she played a show producer, that like a late night show producer, who was very similar to this character, actually, very very understanding of how her body and her sexuality can sway people different ways, and using that as like to get her way in a lot of things, or trying to get her way.
Currency.
Yeah. So it was like, while I was watching it, I recognized the face, but then also like the similarity in the character. I was like, who is this? And then I looked it up. So there. So if anybody is listening, you should watch Sports Night, because it's a great show. But
yeah, and I can't remember where I picked up that I saw her, but it was something probably even lesser known. But her character intrigued me, you know, from the get, because I'm like, one, as a woman who just had a, you know, big number birthday, you know, and, you know, constantly like evaluating my, you know, who I am and who I was, and feeling like, okay, you know, I no longer, or that currency is waning. Not that I use it. It's just like you want to know it's there. You know, what it's like.
You always want to be wanted. Like, even if you don't want
Yeah,
people, like you want to, like, yeah, I remember I was somewhere. Oh, I was in the McDonald's drive-through line. So that tells you a little bit about my life. And I saw somebody do a double take, and I was like, oh, okay. Now,
yeah, the double take will get you pregnant at 20 years old.
Right. Like, obviously, I should be aiming higher than to get a double take from somebody walking past a McDonald's drive-thru. That doesn't need to be said. The point is, someone was looking at me and saw me and enough to do a double take. And that was my win of that day, because it clearly wasn't the McDonald's I was getting. That was not the win. So, but yeah, like, you still want to feel like, okay.
The fries hot?
They were
salty.
Yeah.
If the fries were hot and salty, it was a win.
And then they had that high C orange that I love so much.
I can pass on the high C orange, but if the fries are hot and salty and there's apple pie.
Oh, I think I did get an apple pie. Yeah. Oh, that was a bad thing. Like, I probably ate like three days worth of calories in that one meal, but
matters not. But what were we saying? Yes,
I don't even know.
You want to know that the money's in the bank.
Yes.
Like, you
and might you can withdraw on it when you need to.
Yeah, you might not spend it, but you want to know that the money's in the bank. And clearly Nadine had that, you know, had that awareness. And, you know, they kind of alluded to, she probably always had it, but her relationship with Edwin challenged that. And they showed how, while he was away, she was able to clearly find that about herself again. You know, and, you know, the big theme for me in this, even more so than the father relationship, was the mother relationship. What was unsaid, you know, or the one that was not physically present, and you know, other two women, not the little foster mother lady so much as Nadine, but for me it was like the Nadine and the birth mother. The other woman played a role. There was some triggers there too, but for me, that whole, like, I don't know that I've ever heard that term, mother wound.
Me neither.
And that is thematic in my life, you know, very strongly. Bless you.
Sorry. Thank you.
And I also is, the funny thing is, like, Nadine is like this confident woman, this, you know, kind of assertive woman. She's modern, you know, she's, you know, and that is how I think of my grandmother in her day. And that was clearly a very hard type of mother for my mother to grow up with. And for me, my mother was a great mother for me to have as a child, but as an adult, I long for the Nadine, to be able to have someone with whom I could relate, to have someone with life experience, to have someone who I could trust to, you know, advise me. And that's what Carrie Page is like, rejecting that from Nadine. You know, even though Nadine has these skills and this value to impart, she doesn't have like the love like that my mother has, you know, and
Mhm.
I would say my grandmother, I think my grandmother was the total package. You know, she was
Mhm.
very loving and she was, you know, able to socialize and, you know,
Mhm.
pursue her goals and all that kind of stuff. But um my mother's experience with her apparently is different than what my
Right.
experience with her is, you know, but Paige is needing all of that and she's not getting the love. She's getting love from her dad, but not the, well, I mean, we can go there and I'll let you lead that. Like, not let you, I'll leave it to you to lead that. But like, she's actually getting advised
Yeah.
from, but she
And
doesn't trust the advice. She
right.
doesn't.
And what's interesting, and I didn't think about it that way until you said it, is that literally the advice that Edwin gives Paige, and ultimately the advice that Nadine gives Paige, like both pieces of advice is compelling Paige to literally be more like Nadine and like to like own your shit and to be, and I think Paige Nadine says, I can't remember if this was the first episode because I kind of watched them all, but that conversation where she says like something about it's my mistake to make, or it was something like that, and she was talking about Paige and her were talking about Edwin and Nadine's relationship. This
Mm,
might be on a subsequent episode, but basically when Edwin says like you got to be the top bitch or the main bitch,
the main bitch.
like he's saying to her like I've had Nadine in my life for 20 years or so,
Hmm.
and I know how that relationship goes. Like maybe Nadine was his top bitch at one point,
Hmm.
but clearly she's not now, you know, in his
I think
life.
the bottom bitch is the. I think the bottom bitch is the main bitch.
Oh,
I think that. I think I think that's the one that's laid down for you.
see, I thought I had it reversed.
It would make sense. Let's look this up. Keep talking.
So, yeah, I mean, but I guess that makes sense because like the foundation bitch.
What do I look up? Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, I think you got to go there.
Keep your thought going. I'll clear this up.
But yeah, so like, but he's telling her to be, this is how I took it. Edwin, the father, is telling Paige, the daughter, to be more like Nadine in the sense of knowing your worth and knowing what you can provide to someone, and but also and not letting a relationship consume you.
Right.
Like because Paige and Bill, like, I mean, how many times have we seen that? I've seen that in my own life a gazillion times of someone giving you just
Just
enough,
enough to
and it
keep.
makes you feel like that is all you need. I
Yeah.
only and you're not even conscious of it. You're not even conscious that you're settling for it because this person fills you up in such a way that you feel like this is it. Like this is all that I need. Like I am fulfilled. I am excited about this person. I love this person. This is it. And
And you're so full that you're seeing potential that's not there.
yes, yes. And you are, yeah. So like you just, but and you're not even aware that there is like just a plethora of things that you are not getting,
Hmm.
and you're missing all of the red flags. You're not thinking about like can I have a, you know, like an in-depth conversation with this person? Can I talk about how vulnerable I feel about something that's going on in my life with this person? Does this person recognize me and acknowledge me to his friends or his family? Like all those little things that you don't think about, because whatever they are doing just feels the best.
And
whether it's emotionally or physically. So
right. And in Paige's case, is this person, and I say this from, at various points in my life too, is this person willing to engage with my son? Is this person willing to engage me with their family? Like when I think about like my father's situation, that bitch could not engage with us. She didn't go on vacations with us. We didn't spend holidays with her, and that's the life she chose. And in the end, it didn't work out well for her,
Mm-hmm.
And so what you see when her father comes in is him filling in those gaps and him seeing himself fill in those gaps that Bill is not filling in, meaning he immediately gravitates toward her son. Now, is it his grandson? Yes, but if this is this person that she feels like is her man, then he should be interested in her child and what her child is doing. And at this point in time, that they're depicting, he should be ready to kind of start introducing and integrate, because his daughter was getting married.
Right.
She was not invited to the wedding. Familiar story in my life. Huge,
Gigantic, enormous, do not pass go red flag for me.
Right. Like if you're if you're at that point, then, do I want to sit through a wedding with your ex-wife? Probably not, but do I want to be supported and recognized and acknowledged by you? Absolutely. So they're showing, are you this kid's daddy? No, you're not.
Right.
But does the idea of the two of you having a relationship excite me? And is it healthy? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. I think that the relationship with Bill, seeing that play out, that definitely brought up some feelings for me and people that I have dated, that now that I look back on it, like it wasn't even really dating, because it was like me just liking them a whole lot and them giving me a little bit of attention and me thinking that was them liking me a whole lot. And yeah, and then it's also like I've seen it in my friends' relationships too. And it is probably what sparked Edwin to say something about it, because it is very difficult to watch.
It is.
When you see, and obviously this is always from the outside looking in, but you see things that you're like,
yeah,
are you sure about this, girl?
Yeah.
So that whole conversation, I think, was great between Edwin and Paige about the top bitch, bottom bitch, main bitch, or whatever the term was, because
right. So should we I think just for context, Edwin tells her, no, the context is Bill was being honest. The boyfriend was being honest with her,
yes,
but lying to his ex-wife. And, pragmatic street philosophy.
Right. I want to look up that scene, but go ahead.
Yes. So Edwin is telling her, he's like, wait, what? He's telling you the truth and lying to the ex-wife? He's like, you're not the main bitch then. And she's like astounded, like, oh, no, you want truth in your relationship, which is what we tell ourselves too. Oh, we want the truth. We want the truth in the relationship. But he's like, if he really cared about you, he would be lying to you to make you feel better. But instead, he's lying to, this is a whole other show, but he's lying to the ex-wife to give her comfort, to make her comfortable. And, you know, in my mind, I'm like, well, okay, is there a middle ground here? Because I don't want to be lied to, but I want to be comfortable, you know, but this is, where this whole idea of the main bitch energy, which Kerry Washington actually on her social media just did like this main bitch energy campaign like a few days ago. I was hoping she would send me a shirt too, but she didn't. And I did go looking for it, and they haven't started selling it yet. But so he's saying that a man is going to make you comfortable with the lie as opposed to hurting you with the truth if you are actually the one that he gives a fuck about. And in her mind, she's like, no, you know, especially what we're being told now, like this is the message we're getting now, you know, like in this age of transparency,
right?
You know, he's old school thinking, she's new school,
right?
But then it clicks like,
oh wait. So I pulled up the transcript. So this is what the scene is. So Edwin says to Paige, "Does Bill lie to you?" Paige says, "Absolutely not." That's good. Okay. You are the side piece. A man lies to his main bitch. Paige says, "You are making no sense." The side chick, she knows everything because a man doesn't give a fuck what the side piece thinks. And why would you lie to the most important person? And Paige says, yeah, because you do not wish to upset her because they are the most important. So, like, that's the context. Like, and I mean, that is hood logic, but it is how and toxic, very toxic. But it is how some people who are in situations.
It's unevolved.
It's how they navigate.
It is the unevolved way of thinking. And I mean, I see both sides. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, points were made. Right. Points were made on both sides. You know, don't be having a bunch of bitches if I'm the main bitch, but I also get if that's the situation you're in, it's like, okay, well, I get it. I'm like, okay, yeah, me being me, I'm like, oh, I just want to know everything. Now, I'm a secretive individual, not secretive, like I say everything, but like, it's like not until I'm ready to say something that I say it, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, but at the same time, so I'm just like, yes, I want to know everything about everybody, like anybody I care about, anybody, like I want to know like how you felt coming out of the womb. Like I want to know, like, did it hurt? Was it cold? Was the room light or dark? Like, you know, like, was your daddy ugly? Was your mama yelling? Like, I want to know all that stuff, you know, like I want to know all your childhood wounds and wins. Like I want to know it all. I'll tell you how I feel when I'm ready. Right. You know, I'll tell you, you know, what I'm thinking but I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you, but when I'm ready, because I can't keep a secret. That's the thing. It's like I hold things close to me, but keeping a secret is torture for me because I talk too much.
Yeah.
So, but context. So like in that conversation, I kind of had this feeling like, oh, like, I wish I had those conversations or my dad had those conversations with me. Mm-hmm. You know, anybody, you know, who knows me knows, like, my dad is an icon for me. But those are that I could see my grandfather having that conversation with me, but not that way. And, you know, but, you know, my grandfather would be the one to say, and he has said it, like, you know, so-and-so, Mark, is a dick, you know, like, you know, he'll say that, like, this person is too selfish for you. This person, but my dad was kind of like, if that's what makes you happy. Both my parents were very much that. And I'm like, who in
I
the
need some
fuck gonna
guidance.
reel us in, right? Like, we make bad decisions. Like, we don't make good decisions. Who is going to reel us in here? Because I'm leaving, I'm walking out the door. Is anybody gonna stop me?
Like, hey, I'm about to make this bad decision.
You saw him, right? Like, this dude ain't shit. But here I go. I'm opening the door.
Right? I'm getting in the car.
He is not opening the door for me. You see this, right? Like, and I will say my dad did do that with my sister one time. And actually, maybe this is why he didn't do it, because he was wrong.
Oh.
In this particular instance, she could not have been going out with a nicer guy at the time. She was, but his issue was that she was 14. And I think 14 or 15, she was going to homecoming. But if your teenage daughter was going to homecoming with someone, this would be the boy that you would want her to go, or the person with whom you would want her to go to home. I mean, this guy was the nicest. And, they didn't, I think they beefed out for like a couple weeks and they were good, but he did not get involved. He did not make us feel bad about the decisions we made with guys. And I'll never understand that one. Yeah. Because I should have been shamed a few times.
My dad, I mean, I didn't bring a lot of guys home to meet my mom, or, I mean, my parents were divorced when I was young, so they didn't live together. So, but my dad only liked one guy that he met. He might have met 4 people. And my dad died when I was 23. So like there wasn't
a lot of time.
Yeah, there wasn't a lifetime of, it was only like probably about 5 years, 6 years. So, but he only liked one guy. And it was a guy that I liked at the time, and I hope he's not going to watch this, but was very just like a whatever. Like, I mean, not like whatever, but I liked him a lot at the time, but he wasn't someone that I was like, oh, this is going to be my guy for, an extended period of time. So, and I never, because of how my family communicates so well, I never got to the bottom of what was it about this guy that was so great to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what was the pull? What was the like, did he see himself in him, or I have no idea. So
yeah. And you know what? I actually thought about another time where my father did, and see, this is the other thing. Like a lot of the guys that I was around knew my dad, because my dad was around. Like he was not like, and this is why he was around. You're about to see a pattern of problem. My dad loved sports. He followed high school basketball. So he went to like all those like Catholic school league playoffs, and he followed all the high school players in the area. Like he loved sports. So he was always around. And my sister was a cheerleader. So he was always at all the games. And, I like athletes back then, like, so that excited him, and so even the guys that I wasn't like dating or kicking it with, he just knew a lot of the boys that were like in our friend circle or whatever. So there is another time where he was wrong. but he was wrong this time in like thinking this was the good guy.
And it was the bad guy.
And not only that, I was wrong too. Whole other episode in conversation. I should have never been seeing this guy in the first place for a whole other reason that you can judge me for later. I really was only seeing him out of my own hurt and spite with another situation. But my father was very excited about him because he knew him, meaning he had a rapport with this guy. And so I was like, okay, I'm comfortable. Shouldn't have been. And he was wrong. But I won't hold him accountable for that because I was wrong.
Right.
Tiffany Langford, was dead wrong. And that led to a problem further down the line for me with multiple people. So that was a big thing. But other than that, he steered clear. And then for me, like my mother, not the one to be helping us make decisions about men. Like she would probably say something, but she sees the good in everything and everyone. And she would have like, there was this one boyfriend I had. She was so in love with him and I couldn't stand him. I would come home and he would be in the living room and I'm like, why are you here with my mother kicking it?
And I just got here.
And I don't want to see you.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't have any real good guide. Like my grandparents were the best guidance. When they met somebody, their assessment was not always perfect either, but the best gauge of guidance, you know, character-wise. Like, okay.
Like my mom, there was two things going on with my mom and my relationships and life. So my mom places a very, 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 very high value on women being in relationships. Like I could be, you know, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, but if I were to call her and tell her that I just won the Nobel Peace Prize, she's going to say, well, how is Nelson doing? Like that is her thought process. And so when it came to me and dating in my teen years, it was, especially like if she was dating someone, it didn't really matter who it was. I could have gone out with Freddy Krueger and she would have been like, yeah, okay.
Long as you have a man.
Yeah. As long as I have a man, and if she had a man at the time, then it was all good. I could do whatever, I could go wherever, I could be wherever, whatever. It didn't matter. And thinking back on it, I really probably should have taken advantage of that because I didn't. But you know, so like her, like that is her. I mean, and there's all kinds of trauma wrapped up in that, you know.
Right.
But that is her thing. So like, you know, and it's a major source of contention, really, just from my end, from me to her, because it does not even compute in her mind. But like all the things that I've done with like going freelance a couple years ago, starting Paisley, the press that I got for Paisley from a couple years ago, and she does not ask about that, talk about that, but every time I talk to her, she asks me about my boyfriend and how is he and what is he up to, and is he over there? Are you over his house? Like that, like those are the questions, and it's
infuriating.
It's infuriating, and it's also very, and I wish I was well spoken enough to not say very all the time, but it is extremely sad for me
Mm-hmm.
to see that because being in a relationship has defined her existence, that it defines my existence to her.
It validates who it is. It makes you valid or invalid as a
Right.
person, and I get that. Because so I mentioned my grandmother, but here's the thing. That's like that old school thinking. Like that's that like both of my grandmothers, my dad's mom and my mom's mom, even though my mom's mom was better at discerning who's worth my time, find somebody worth your time. For her, like in definitive of that very thing, she has
Mm-hmm.
all anytime and every time she sees me. Do you have a man? Who's your man?
Mm-hmm.
You need, like it's all about I want a man. I'm like, gay, she's also 87, about to be 87, she's like, I need a man. Like it's all about a man. And my other grandmother, who never had Alzheimer's, was like in her right mind the whole time, constantly, like all about getting married. When are you getting married? Why aren't you getting married? Like you've been married 3-4 times. Like how does that work? And there's been a lot of domestic violence, lot on your part in those relationships. Like you didn't put up with shit from these guys, and you're constantly like, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? And I think that's a whole other mother wound, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that Carrie or Paige did not deal with, or somehow she still found her way. I think you and I maybe share like a similar hesitance in relationships, or like we're like, I know for me, I think it's resulted in that sadness that you talk about has resulted in this need for hyper independence.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm constantly fighting what I think is kind of a pathetic
Mm-hmm.
existence.
Yep.
This like, you need to have a man. No, I want to be with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Right.
don't want it to be I don't want being Tiffany to be defined by if a man finds me worthy enough to
Right.
be with him.
Right.
So, I don't know what the opposite of that is, but that's what Paige is dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 She never got that balance or that. Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, like it's another quick story, just like my grandmother. So I talked earlier, or I don't know, were we off camera? When I talked about my son's father, my oldest son's father, I was very young. So all this judgment is, to be fair, youthful behavior. I am pretty sure he's still the same person, but he was not good for me. It was not a good decision. I was not making good decisions. But my grandmother was and I broke up with him at one point. I called her from work, and he was at her house painting her kitchen because I would not talk to him. So he knew that he could get through to me by charming her
Mm-hmm.
into,
Toxic.
so it's like, and my grandmother then is admonishing me for being so mean to him.
Right.
I'm like, he's cheating on me. He's lying to me. He's taking like all the stuff that they make memes about, he's doing. And because he's got those big white teeth and, right. And he's strong. Never mind, he also doesn't have a job himself. While I'm at work, he's painting your house, but I'm being admonished because I'm being mean. And so that was just a quick.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about, I mean, in this show, to bring it back to the show, is, I mean, it's about, I mean, the daddy issues are, you know, a common theme throughout because of just the nature of Edwin coming back home and all of that. But like, you don't have those issues and then don't have mommy issues too. And mommy issues are quite a different animal. Like,
they are, what is that thing that's like Bigfoot? Is that like they're like something that's big and gigantic and scary, and everybody, like, you see all the big footprints, like,
but you don't ever see Bigfoot.
Right, but nobody says it. Like, it's like, you know, and then it's like, oh, people either hate their mother because she's so narcissistic and this, but you don't understand, there are other types of mothers that are harmful. And you know, like I know there are ways in which I've been a harmful mother to my son, you know, and I'm trying to, you know, I'm not saying I've been terrible. I'm not defending myself. I'm just saying there are ways in which I look back now that I've learned and grown, and I also know what those ways are. I'm not just like, oh, I'm so sorry I hurt you and I don't really know why. No, I'm learning. These are the reasons why, you know, if he doesn't care, I do.
Right.
Like, these are the reasons why. But I will sit there and acknowledge that to him because I want him to know it's okay to acknowledge to me that my behavior was hurtful and harmful to who you are. And the most hurtful and harmful thing is not really learning who you are.
Right.
Just making an assessment for myself and being like, that's who he is, and putting you in this box, and that's where you're going to stay.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I had lunch with a friend not too long ago, and we were talking about mommy issues and how, like, it is, I mean, the source of it all is that even though as children, we can't name it, we can't put words to it, we can't explain what we need, but as we grow up, we understand that, like, and it's validated by society and TV shows and movies and all of the other things, and, you know, Hallmark, that your mother is supposed to be this solid rock, this person that you can go to about everything and anything, and she's going to nurture you, she's going to hug you, she's going to make everything okay. And when you start to realize that that's not quite your experience, it sends off 1,000 little triggers every single day of like, you know, the big questions of like, am I good enough? Am I worth this? Am I worth love? Am I worth somebody being concerned about my well-being or whatever? To the small little things like, oh, yeah, I'm remembering that I had to teach myself how to shave. Like, you know, it's like, it's everything in between that, you know, it's so the mom issues, and I don't think I've had daddy issues just because my dad was in my life, even though we weren't as close as I wish we could have been, but he was definitely in my life and around, and someone that was very stable and steady in my life. But the mom issues, see,
right. And for me, what I think I have learned is that, and I think this is relevant to the show, is that I do. I mean, I don't think I had to learn this, but I think I recognized it as I got older. I do have while my father was definitely the pragmatic and I'm asking my son to come turn the light on so that that you can see me. So what I had good parents. I had present parents. But what I realized, and I think what Paige is, I think not what Paige is not experiencing this part, but I think that for me, or what I think for me is that dysfunction like what Paige has makes it seem like what I have couldn't possibly be dysfunction.
Right. Yep.
And it allows for parents who are, it allows parents to get away with things simply because they're present.
Yep. Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's like the baseline, like, well, at least they were there for you. And my parents are still above the at least they were there for you bar by far, but it really takes more to create a whole person, and I think what Unprisoned is showing us from the very beginning is that a lot of that is us having to do it for ourselves as we get older because our parents are not whole people. And that's the thing. It's like my parents were not whole people. My father did an amazing job of looking out for himself. Like he did an amazing job of setting this example of I can be a parent, I can pursue my own goals, I can, be professionally successful. I can be a fun, good person. Like he never had a nasty attitude. Like I can guarantee you my siblings, none of us would say he wasn't there for us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we could say my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but her presence wasn't as strong in the house as his was because his was, I think, so intentional.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean it wasn't good. It means that it was just a much quieter present. Like the reason why he is so etched in our minds, in that way is because he had to be intentional to be as complete as he could. But then I find out as he gets older, because he didn't share a lot about his childhood, but then as he gets older and he's like in hospice, he's sharing things with me. And I'm like, you had a lot of wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And for my dad, pouring into us in that way, as opposed to going into himself, I assess that was his way of coping. His way of coping was, that, which worked out great for us.
Yeah.
I don't know what harm it was doing to him.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Like it's because I think so many people do the opposite. So many parents do the opposite. They go inward.
Mm-hmm.
Or
and that's hard.
And it's hard. Or they're outward, or if they do go outward, it's physically, it's physical abuse, it might be sexual abuse, emotional abuse. So, I mean, there's no good side to it, but if there was a best of the worst, I think that your dad did the best of that, like pouring into
100%.
And then, and taking the hits himself, essentially, like personally, but making sure that he gave to you, like that's.
And he, and I had lunch with a friend a couple weeks ago, and she was saying and her brother was real close to our family. And she was younger, so we didn't know her as well back then. And she was just saying how her brother would tell her like about our dad, like, because that was like the kind of dad he wanted to be for his daughter. And I was like, wow, like when you have that kind of impact, the thing, the reality could be that what he saw, because, is not really what was, but what he saw really is what was.
Mm-hmm.
And the harder part is when people say, oh, like your parent is so this, they're so that. And you kind of have to be like, that's not really who they are. Like that's not, you're not wrong. My parent is, nice and lovely or whatever, but that's the 15 minutes you're with them.
Right.
And they're on. And so many, and we're also there are people like, I'm hardly wrong about who people are, but as people, we in moments we're like, oh, like if we're in a social setting, we're not gonna choose to see, what's wrong with somebody,
Right.
We want to have a good time.
Right.
We're self-absorbed. We're like, oh, they're cool, whatever, and, I think Paige took advantage of that through her social, going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation with social media. We know that about people.
Mm-hmm.
We know that people are so self-absorbed that we can get away with giving them fragments of ourselves, that they can create a narrative from just a little bit that we give them.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, let there be light.
Right.
Oh, thank you, son. The producer just went by.
Right.
We get away with that. And Unprisoned, I think, kind of, if we can bring this home a little bit, is not just about Edwin getting out of prison. It's about like releasing all of these different, emotional shackles that shackles is such a dramatic word. All of these emotional shackles that, have had a chokehold on this family,
mm-hmm.
and the people around them, for really, she's in her 40s in this, for 40 some years. So, right. Bottom line is, watch the show. We can talk about this for hours and hours and hours, which is why Andrea had the brilliant idea to just do one episode, but it's so hard not to like go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And we can and will. And I think maybe we can just find ways to incorporate, because if anybody is relatively unstable, it is, I don't know what their last name was on this show, Paige and Edwin.
Yeah.
And because really the most stable person was Finn.
Right. Right.
The child.
Right.
And that's another theme, is learning from your children. Like,
mm-hmm.
So.
And so the next one that we do, I guess we should like talk about episode 2 next time, or maybe 2 and 3. I don't know however we want to do it.
We can batch them so that we don't drag this out for a whole year.
Right. But yeah, really interested in, and this is something that we'll talk about later, but really interested in your take on the male relationship too.
Oh, right. Oh. Lots of thoughts there.
Yeah.
Lots of thoughts there. Lots of thoughts there. I'm gonna have to remember, make sure I was being honest, because there's so many things that I touched on today that are relevant to that conversation, but I was being honest there. Mm-hmm. That said, before we go, what documentary are you watching? Oh, did we wrap it up good enough? I think we
Right.
I think we're good. I think we're good to go.
So from your recommendation, I watched the Shaq documentary series, and we chatted a little bit about it, but maybe that's something that we should also talk about.
I would love to talk about that.
Because it was very good. It was very good. I mean, I knew a little bit about her story. Like, I mean, I knew about, everybody remembers my biological didn't bother. So I knew that part of the story. I knew about his dad, the person he calls dad being in the army or the armed services. So like I knew that part of the story, but like I didn't know that he had like siblings and or any of that. So like it was super interesting. Also very what's the word I want to say? I mean, the way that he describes his parenting that was given to him by his dad, the person he calls dad, is very stereotypical of how like I think like the boomers were raised. Like tough love, I don't give a shit, do what I say, don't talk back. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a dialogue, this is not a conversation. Like you're doing what I say and you're gonna shut the hell up about it.
Right. And and I'm right, as you can see, because I raised a successful child, and it's like, I think you raised that's indisputable. You raised a successful child, but also he was literally built for success, and literally built for success. And, by his own, admission, emotionally immature. And sidebar, I just realized I have a meeting at work tomorrow in the office. Problematic, but whatever. Because yeah, there was a lot in that.
There was a
lot documentary that I learned and that I found fascinating.
Yeah, and I saw, and then this last thing that I will say, and then we'll actually wrap this up. But I saw and I'll have to pull this up before if we have a show about that doc, I'll have to pull this this little video clip of him because he was being interviewed by somebody and he was talking about how like his mind doesn't rest, he doesn't sleep. He has a lot of regrets about people that have passed away in his life that he didn't connect with like he should have. He's hyper fascinated with taking care of everybody, so that makes him work. I mean, he's in
trauma.
A million different products. So like he's so to tie back to the dad, like, yes, you raised a successful man in terms of gender or sex, but a man in terms of a man that is emotionally whole. And, I think he's just starting to get accountable for the things that he's done in his life, but he's 50 something,
right.
So, but it was great, lots to unpack there. And I don't know, but I think that we might have several podcasts coming up. I know. I mean,
in case you haven't noticed, we don't do a good job of content calendar keeping. So we always have lots to talk about. We will continue to. Oh, P.S. Palencia Mobley, shout out Palencia Mobley, got me started watching this documentary Trap Queen today.
Oh,
I don't know that I'll be able to finish it, P, because all that chicken talk, I can't. It's so hood.
Where is it on?
BET Plus.
Oh, I don't have that.
T
Okay.
Plus, but it's a whole lot of I can't.
Nails.
Yeah. He loved me though. So we'll see if I get through it. I'm watching one episode on Detroit. I skipped to that one, so we'll see. Until next time, let us know things that you would like to hear us ramble on about, and don't forget to like, follow, share, save, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will be back with something else relatively unstable to chat with you about.
Yes. Until
next time, watch your brackets.
Oh, shambles.
Make sure you cash in on those bets.
Right. Early.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.